Hello, this is Sarah Brush. Welcome back to my channel. So I want to do a video right now about Yale President Peter Salovey. So he released a public statement after the verdict was announced for the Derek Chauvin, is that how he pronounces his name? I'm not sure, trial for George Floyd's murder. Of course, he was the black man in Minneapolis who was confronted by the Minneapolis police after allegedly passing a $20 counterfeit bill at like a mom and pop corner store in Minneapolis. And then we all know that we've all seen the video of Derek Chauvin kneeling with his knee on George Floyd's neck for approximately 8 or 9 minutes. And of course, George Floyd died. And so this was the trial. I'm sure everybody already knows all of that. So anyway, so the verdict came down that Derek Chauvin was pronounced guilty, including of murder, of one of the levels of murder. I want to say second degree, but that could be wrong. I might be mistaken about that. So anyway, that happened, and then Yale President Peter Salovey released a public statement, basically giving his take on the verdict. And basically what Yale President Peter Salovey did is he exploited the murder of George Floyd to say a lot of ridiculous things about the racism and policing efforts on Yale's campus, investigations into racism and policing, academic work on racism and policing, and he also said a lot of very ridiculous, asinine, ludicrous things about his vast Maoist new diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, bureaucracy that he introduced, and he blamed me for that and said I was the impetus for this vast new Maoist DEI bureaucracy on Yale's campus for reporting people for racial harassment, snitching on them without any due process whatsoever. And it's also named after me. He named it after me. It's called Belonging at Yale. And this is named Belonging at Yale, which is now a word, a term that has been picked up by universities, colleges across the U.S. and their respective DEI bureaucracies, Maoist bureaucracies. So where this language came from, which I've already done another YouTube video about it, but where this language came from is that it's the disgusting lie that Jean-Louis Renison and Lolata Siambola told about me with respect to the February 24th, 2018 incident, for which I was exonerated by Yale Housing. And they told me that not only had I not done anything wrong, but I was the only person involved who had done nothing wrong. So months later, I found out in a letter that was given to me at the end of June that was, I guess, written by Lolata Siambola and Jean-Louis Renison, and then given to Yale Grad School Diversity Dean Michelle Neeren, which accuses me of having perpetrated a racist hate crime on February 24, 2018, comparable to a lynching. So in this letter, so Jean-Louis Renison, and he repeated this claim in the media blitz that he and Lolata Siambola went on after May 8th, 2018. He said that I told him that he didn't belong there. Okay, and then this was language that was repeated in the disgusting lies in the public statements that Yale President Peter Salovey, Yale Grad School Dean Lynn Cooley, Yale VP of Student Life Kimberly Goff-Cruz, all of their grossly defamatory, lying public statements that they made about me immediately after May 8th, 2018, they all repeated this language, the belonging language, and repeated this lie that was told by Jean-Louis Renison and Lolata Siambola. And that's where the name Belonging at Yale comes from. So anyway, and then he also, in this disgusting, ridiculous statement about the trial verdict for Derek Chauvin's trial for murdering George Floyd, Yale President Peter Salovey also made ridiculous statements about 21CP. Now, 21CP is this consultancy that the Yale admin brought in to do a review of the Yale campus police department. And 21CP, what does that mean? It comes from Barack Obama's 21st Century Policing Task Force. Now, both of the co-directors of the Justice Collaboratory at Yale Law School, Tom Tyler, my then advisor, who threw me over, presumably at the behest of his co-director, Tracy Mears. So they were both on Barack Obama's 21st Century Policing Task Force. So this 21CP consultancy that came in and did a review of the Yale Police Department is, intimately associated with the Justice Collaboratory, where I worked with Tom Tyler at Yale Law School on the issues of racism and policing before Tom Tyler threw me over, before Monica Bell, the disgusting lying bigot and fraud, tried to drive me to suicide on Twitter and in the NYU Law Review. And this was before Veshla Weaver, who's actually at Johns Hopkins now, as is Chris LeBron, in Vox.com. They tried to drive me to suicide and also used me as a proxy to get revenge against Yale for Chris LeBron having been denied tenure at Yale. And Veshla Weaver, still a member of the Justice Collaboratory, a longtime collaborator and friend of Tracy Mears, the co-director. Presumably it was at her behest that Tom Tyler eventually threw me over, even though he supported me immediately after the Living or Not Being Well Black hate crime hoax at Yale, and actually wrote one of my character letters that was sent to Yale General Counsel. So I'm telling you all of this because Yale President Peter Salovey exploited George Floyd's murder to try to provide cover for all of these, racism and policing efforts at Yale, for this stupid, grossly defamatory, ridiculous, asinine review report that 21CP did on the, my laptop just restarted for some reason. That's what that noise was. So 21CP, the consultancy did a ridiculous review report, which was just another excuse for Yale to defame me as a genocidal villain who lynches black students at Yale, and to try to drive me to suicide and destroy my lifelong human and civil rights career, etc., etc. So basically what I want to make clear, I think he also mentioned Dr. Phil Goff and the Equity in Policing Institute. So of course Dr. Phil Goff, I did a recent YouTube video, is a lying bigot and fraud who participated in the global vilification campaign against me, presumably at the behest of Yale President Peter Salovey after May 8, 2018, and has since been handsomely rewarded by President Salovey in the form of his professorship at Yale and the housing of his Equity in Policing Institute at Yale. And so he is a disgusting lying bigot and fraud, as well as is Monica Bell, Tom Tyler, Tracy Mears, Veshla Weaver, everyone associated with the Justice Collaboratory, everyone associated with Equity in Policing at Yale. Basically everything, I'm going to do another video just about this, but everything on racism and policing at Yale is a Living While Black race hoax. It's a joke. It's wholly discredited. It should be ignored. And so what Yale President Peter Salovey was doing in his statement about the verdict, the Chauvin trial verdict for George Floyd's murder, is he was exploiting George Floyd's murder to try to provide cover for the fact that all of his efforts, DEI bureaucracy efforts, belonging at Yale, everything on racism and policing at Yale, has all been part of Yale President Peter Salovey's campaign to destroy me, to drive me to suicide, to incite my murder, to destroy my lifelong human and civil rights, academic and legal careers, and to cover up his gross malfeasance, to cover up his complicity in the living or napping while black hate crime hoax at Yale. Everything he has done has been to try to cover up his complicity and the rest of the Yale administration's complicity in the living or napping while black hate crime hoax at Yale. I don't want this video to get too long. I just want to make sure that Yale President Peter Salovey knows that everyone knows what he's doing and that he's a disgusting, sick and evil, lying bigot and fraud, and he's not fooling anyone. And you're disgusting to exploit George Floyd's murder in this way. It's disgusting. And so I think that's everything that I want to say right now. I don't want this video to get too long, but obviously I'll have much more to say about this. I will have all of my fundraising links below. GoFundMe, PayPal me, a direct link to Randaz, a legal group. All right. Thank you so much. I love you all so much for your support and kind words. They mean everything to me. Please donate to my legal fund so that we can restore due process and equal protection at Yale and everywhere. All right. Have a great night. Bye.